Neil Shigley is an accomplished San Diego artist, painter, printmaker, and educator. Much of his fine art has focused on the human condition and the human figure. His most recent work, Invisible People, consists of large-scale portraits of homeless people near his studio in San Diego. By capturing the incredible character that a tough life on the streets has given these individuals, he is also able to capture a nobility, beauty, strength, and vulnerability that anyone can find if they just stop and take a look.
This whole process starts with a walk downtown or anywhere and approaching somebody who, in my opinion, the character on their face is something I'd like to deal with. And I'll pretty directly ask them, I'm an artist, I'd like to do your portrait. Some say yes, some say no. I will always give them some money either way. If they say yes, I will engage in conversation with them as long as they'll talk. I ask a certain number of very specific questions along with anywhere the conversation goes. I'll end that conversation with a photo. From the photo, I'll come back to the studio, do some drawings. I'll blow the drawings up, and that's when the carving begins. Well, they are block prints, large block prints that are carved into a plexiglass block. I use a flexible shaft drill, and I carved them into a large sheet of plexiglass. Once that's complete, I roll it with ink, put a piece of paper down, hand press it, pull the print. Here's a couple that are ready to mount here. And once I print them, I will mount them onto a canvas stretched over a panel. And then I'll usually pour a pretty thick coat of some kind of a matte medium to give it some protection. When I went to art school, art center, I had an opportunity to do a free-form project, and I picked woodcut. And I went pretty big. I think it was probably 4 by 6, and I realized kind of how difficult the process was, but I really fell in love with it. Shortly before that, I'd been in Germany and kind of looked at a lot of the woodcuts that done by the German expressionists, which really kind of turned me on. So the first guy that agreed to let me do his portrait, his name was Willie, Sergeant Willie, Vietnam vet. He was sleeping on an overpass on the 5 freeway on Broadway, kind of tucked away in a little cubbyhole. We talked for quite a bit. He was physically looked like he wasn't doing well, had quite a big eye issue. And of all of the people that I've met, and there's been a lot, each of them has this really, well, they have their own story. Using the word homeless in some ways, I think for me is a bit misleading. It kind of implies it's a big group, that they're all in it together, a club, when in reality it's Dave who has a problem with alcohol, it's Bruce who had a leg injury, couldn't work again, it's Ruth who left her house from domestic violence situation, it's Bella who was dragged around by her mother who was homeless, it's Eddie who has mental issues. So each has a really unique reason why they're on the street, why they may or may not be able to get on the street. Some of the stories are epic, some are really mundane. And I mean, when I think about it, the difference between those people and me or you, so there is no difference. Wake up in the morning, get dressed, have the day ahead of us, and find a way to the end of the day. When we look at other people and look for the things that are different, like I'm not like that, I never do that, it's easy to ignore them, forget them, cast them aside. But if we look for the things that make us alike, and there's so many more of those things, if we search for those things, if we embrace those things, it opens the doors for peace, open the doors for love. So I could go into so many individual stories about these people. Here's homelessness and COVID. This guy said 2 words to me in 20 minutes. This guy, I don't get it. He looked like he'd been in college, he had a career, he had a restaurant job, and here he is on the streets for 6 months. I know that when I go to bed at night and I pull the covers up, I feel pretty lucky. I know that I have a roof over my head for my family and myself. I feel pretty fortunate. When it's raining outside, it's cold outside, I'm always thinking about the people who are out there and living that life. And it's a complex issue, and I have no answers to this. And I think that for me, by showing this work, and as often as I can and speaking about it, perhaps somebody who's much smarter than me will have some answers. I've titled this series Invisible People, because for most people who encounter somebody in the street, they ignore them and they avoid them, actively make them invisible. So presenting them at this scale, it forces somebody in a room with them to confront these people and the situation that they and so many like them are in. So I think maybe what I've learned is that art has the power to focus attention. And when you focus attention, you can raise awareness. When that happens, change can happen. In a grand society, city, cultural level, all the way down to an individual where one person treats another person with respect.